You've learned to look incompetent. Now you must learn to be invisible in motion. In this lesson, we'll be discussing deployment. Sun Tzu knew that an army is most vulnerable when it is moving. Packing up, assembling, and scouting are all tells, signals that broadcast your intentions to the enemy. In the age of 24/7 satellite surveillance and drone swarms, the routine of moving an army has become the most dangerous part of war. Every military has a signature. Before a battalion moves, there is a spike in radio traffic, trucks are fueled, and tents are struck. If the enemy sees these routines, they don't just see where you are, they see what you are doing. Sun Tzu's principle is that the less warning the enemy receives, the higher your chance of survival. A well-trained force must be able to go from static to moving without changing its outward appearance. In the 2022 through 2026 conflict, routine has become a death sentence. During the defense of the Donbas, Ukrainian forces have mastered the art of small group injection. Instead of moving whole brigade in a massive, visible convoy, which would be spotted by Russian Orlan drones and struck by Iskander missiles, they move in tiny, non-military signatures. They use civilian-style SUVs or small vans, moving 2 or 3 soldiers at a time over several days. To an overhead drone, it looks like normal local traffic, a false report for the enemy's spies. By the time Russia realizes a new force has arrived, the deployment is already complete. We also see Sun Tzu's war tip in action: give the spies something false to report. In 2024, Ukrainian units frequently used decoy encampments. They would leave old tents standing, keep the fires burning, and even use speakers to play the sounds of a busy camp. To Russian electronic intelligence, the unit appeared static and routine. In reality, the actual troops had packed up in total silence during a moonless night and were already 10 miles away, preparing a flank attack. Sun Tzu is blunt here. If your deployment is predictable, you are already intercepted. Early in the war, Russian movements were often tied to rail lines and rigid schedules. Because their routines were so easily read, Ukrainian stay-behind units and HIMARS teams could predict exactly where a supply column would be at 2 p.m. The lack of disguise meant that the Russian troops were intercepted before they ever reached the front line. Your camp is always being watched. In 2026, the spy is a high-altitude drone or a commercial satellite. To disguise your deployment, you must, first, maintain signal silence, no radio changes. Second, move in packets. Break the visual signature of a large army. 3. Leave a ghost. Make the old position look occupied until the last possible second. Speed is important, but silence is vital. If the enemy knows you are coming, the battle is a toss-up. If you arrive while they think you are still packing your bags, the battle is already won. We've now seen how a second deception, disguising deployment, is less about hiding the soldiers and more about hiding the routine. By the time we look at the battlefields of 2026, the traditional image of a massive army marching to war is extinct. In its place is a ghost-like, digital-first shadow movement. To wrap up, let's see how this principle is being used right now to defy the 24/7 gaze of modern surveillance. The core of this lesson is simple. If the enemy can't predict your move, they can't stop it. In 2026, we see Ukraine using thermal exoskins, anti-thermal suits that erase a soldier's heat signature from Russian infrared drones. Moving a unit isn't just about walking, it's about blending into the noise of the environment. By the time a Russian spy satellite looks over a sector, the soldiers have moved without ever appearing on the sensor. We've seen incredible examples like Operation Spider's Web, where Ukrainian forces used standard civilian cargo trucks to smuggle strike drones deep into Russian territory. By using the routine of everyday commerce, they disguised the deployment of a lethal strike force. The enemy observed the routine, a truck delivery, but estimated wrong. Sun Tzu's warning that the less warning the enemy receives, the better, is now a literal life or death calculation. In the current theater, interdiction strikes, attacks on moving supply lines, have become a primary Russian tactic. By March 2026, Russian forces have even begun disguising their own electronic warfare antennas as artificial trees and stumps to hide the routine of setting up communications. As you close this lesson, remember, a well-trained force doesn't just move fast, it moves boringly. It doesn't arouse suspicion, it doesn't change the radio chatter, it doesn't spike the fuel consumption. It arrives like a thief in the night, precisely because it looked like nothing was happening at all. In your own strategy, don't announce your departure. Let your arrival be the only thing they notice.